And thank you so much for looking into the crystal ball today. I know that it's a little bit murky, but cleared up a little bit yesterday when our new president noted the 25% tariffs should start February 1 on Mexico and Canada. And I comment first just to say I don't think that you can understate the potential impact of that on dairy. But like most of us in agriculture, you look for opportunity and you look for the good. Can either of you comment on any opportunity that might be created with a new administration that might be more aggressive in pursuing new trade agreements? And where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth? Also knowing that there are lawmakers in the room who may be thinking about the future of programs like the Wisconsin Initiative for Agricultural Exports. So is there opportunity in the face of what is likely to be volatility?
Why don't you go first on that one?
Yeah, I don't know if I can rattle off specific target markets in terms of expanding or creating new export opportunities for some of our ag commodities. I will say though that I think it's harder to create a new customer than it is to keep customers and existing markets happy and satisfied, and those relationships we have fostered positive moving forward. So I think there will be opportunities like that. I mean, we saw in 2018 the massive shut off of soybean trade flows to China, but that to other places. Like our net loss in soybean exports was not what we lost to China. They went other places, but they were going to China in the first place for a reason. It was costlier to send them other places, and so the net effect was negative for farmers. And so, there will be adjustments, there will be opportunities, but at a minimum in the short term, that will come at a cost. And kind of the best case I think you could look is in the medium to longer term is once those once the chips fall and we reorganize that could we be in a I suppose it's possible, but I think those are very hard projections to make.
Yeah, I'd agree with Nick's perspective on that. So if you think about the landscape for dairy trade, our top 3 export partners are in order: Mexico, China, about 40% of our total exports. Right? So we have had recent successes, particularly with growth in like Southeast Asian markets. So I might expect that to continue regardless of whatever other policies that we pursue. But I guess part of my job as an economist is only talk about bad stuff. No,
That's not who you are.
but so I guess part of what I'm thinking is all the good things that we might see in those areas that might come from a trade deal will be hard to offset any of the negative impacts if we have a pretty big impact on those 3 major that are key export destinations. However, I do want to kind of put this in the broader context of I think there is a lot of growth potential for U.S. dairy, particularly kind of with our existing policy landscape, because we have the EU sort of retrenching and going in the direction of thinking a lot about environmental issues. I happened to be working in the Netherlands when a bunch of Dutch dairy farmers drove tractors down their equivalent of an interstate highway to protest the fact that they were going to get rid of a third of their dairy cows to meet emissions goals. We have Australia and New Zealand that I think are both challenged in terms of their funding, as well as some of the climate change that's going on, to keep up with the pace of growth that we are able to maintain here in the U.S., and that will be a part of the growth in the dairy global landscape. So I think there's opportunities there, and kind of as Nick said, the longer term is a lot harder to predict, but policy landscape that's going to allow us to access those growth opportunities globally will be kind of an important thing for us to consider, in addition to sort of thinking about the short-term impacts on ag or versus other sectors.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, great job. You'll notice that one person is missing on our panel, and that's Chris DeLong, and he is an international trader, and his position was designed to answer a lot of the questions that Nick and Chuck are trying to step into as economists. So I appreciate them trying to give you the best answer they can. necessarily some of that real world, I'm doing it expertise that Chris had.
Yeah.
Well, he
Yeah.
sent us an email, so we're good. No.
I didn't hear what?
No, he sent us an email, so Chuck and I, we got it all covered.
That's it.
I've
You're
got
getting
all
text messages on-
Chris's
just
notes
text-
here.
There it is,
Yeah.
attaboy.
So he can actually have his voice heard, but he doesn't have to take any of the responsibility or.
Go ahead.
Thank you so both. I have a question that's bringing us more to kind of what's happening here at the local scale. I'm interested, you referred previously about kind of the IRA fundings and then how that I work with the NRCS and the huge investment that then we saw going into conservation programs, broadening the scope of the NRCS and doing a lot of work with like urban growers and smaller scale producers. And I'm wondering, in my mind, I see in one world, if we're having maybe a decrease in our international trade, like what are the possibilities here on a local and a regional scale to like our own producers? Yes, commodity crop and dairy, but also I'm thinking like diversified veggie operations and all sorts of other types of farm enterprises. What is that potential impact on like those local markets and like local food systems and regional food systems? But then if we're also losing, and we just saw, the FSA just had the MAS. There was like a huge influx. I can't remember the acronym, but there was just a huge influx right before the change in administration to help people that do specialty crops to have kind of like a subsidy-like payment. So if we're losing that, I guess, could you talk through some of those and how that could be impacting our more local and regional food systems?
You go first.
I guess I have to go first this time.
Sure.
So I'm going to say that I'm not sure I have a really good way to address directly the question that you're thinking about. I guess what I would say is I'm going to talk a little bit about the perspective on dairy, which doesn't get into the specialty crops or the other programs that might be relevant there. But we have a very diverse landscape for dairy production and marketing in the state of Wisconsin, and actually that's mirrored in a number of other states of the United States as well. I think there is potential for that to continue to grow with and without policy support, but I think policy support is going to actually be kind of important to making that a meaningful or contribution to the overall demand for milk and dairy products. A study surveying Wisconsin dairy farmers, well, actually it turned out there were some Minnesota dairy farmers in the group too. I didn't realize that until later on, but that's okay. And we were trying to understand the importance of a practice like grazing, which isn't maybe exactly what you're thinking about, but tends to be something that more environmentally friendly, practiced at a little bit smaller scale. And it's important in the state of Wisconsin. About 20% of the farms that responded to our survey said they grazed. The scale, though, is a little bit smaller when you think about what are the total number of cows, what's the total amount of milk production that's being marketed. It gets down to 1%. So I think kind of the smaller scale, the alternative localized food systems, important, can provide great opportunities. I don't see the policy directions that are really going to move the dial either up or down in terms of the trajectory of that becoming part of the overall production and consumption landscape, at least on the side of dairy. And over to you.
Yeah, again, I'm probably not going to touch on the specialty crop issue specifically, but so my experience in Illinois working with NRCS, again, very, very corn and soybean production biased here, but I felt like we were just finally getting to the point where there was some momentum in Illinois. Like when the IRA funding came through, I think NRCS wasn't even staffed to the point where they could effectively get the technical assistance and the dollars out the door to try to get some practice changes considered on the ground. And I felt like this year we were really starting to see a turning point with that. NRCS had staffed up a lot. I think there's a lot of concern now about what do those positions look like based on what this is in terms of efficiency, cuts to spending. And then we also have a very program we're really proud of in Illinois, Precision Conservation Management, that has 500,000 acres enrolled, where farmers are connected with the incentives to implement cover crops and reduce tillage practices and put together nutrient management plans and reduce the amount of nutrient loss we have, which is going to help meet our nutrient loss reduction strategies in the state. And again, the momentum there, I worry now will sort of be lost. And, think what you will about, whether the environmental objectives are real or, but these were real opportunities that kind of create what I view as commodity plus opportunities for farmers, where it's not just the rat race of growing corn and soybeans and competing directly with, our Brazilian counterparts. These were opportunities to, take advantage of initiatives with corporate partners and get some incentives to do some of these things, some additional revenue streams, some value-added stuff, right, Jeff? So, and I worry that, a lot of that momentum may go away now in the next 4 years.
Despite